Hello everyone, I am here with Danny Schaefer, lead designer for Game of Thrones, the card game. Danny, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
It's an absolute pleasure. Tell us a little bit about you, just in terms of like you as a human being, and how you got involved with Fantasy Flight and specifically Thrones. Because I think this may be the first, maybe the second time we've had you on camera. So
yeah, I'm not sure.
A lot of the Thrones players may not actually know the man behind the curtain as it is. So how did you get here?
So I actually started at FFG as an intern about 2.5 years ago. I was, obviously into the board games and LCGs and everything like that. So applied for an internship and did that for a few months. And then there was an opening in the LCG department, and I applied and got it.
Wow.
Yeah, so I felt pretty lucky.
Just running right through the ranks.
Awesome, yeah. So then I got started on Game of Thrones just after the core set was done with development, but before it came out. And Nate sort of took me under his wing for the first cycle, the first box. I sort of learned all the ropes, played a lot of Thrones.
Yeah.
And then around the time of the second cycle, I sort of took over from Nate as he moved on to other stuff. Obviously, like he's on Arkham and things like that.
Yeah.
And since then, I've just been pretty much the guy on Thrones.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man, so what have you learned in your time as a designer / developer as opposed to just a player of these kinds of games, right?
You sort of learn that there are a lot of different players and a lot of different kind of cards that people like. I think when you're a player, you're very focused on what you want to do, and you want to make cards for your certain type of deck. And when you're a designer, you have to be a lot more conscious of like, there's new players who want to do this kind of thing, and there's players who want to play control decks and players who want to play rush decks and aggro decks. And you have to think about what they want and what all the different kind of cards that are good for the game, and not just the very hyper-competitive tournament cards.
Yeah, and of course not letting one get way better than any of the others.
Yeah,
then you have like, well, now we can't play anything. Give me a recap of Thrones so far as you see it, right? So we had the core set come out.
So the core set, at the end of 2015.
And game was good. I mean, exceedingly well received. First edition rebooted into second edition, first time it's ever been done.
Yeah, it was
a lot of
a bold move for sure.
Question marks, hand-wringing going on about it. Turned out really well for FFG. A lot of players getting involved again who were old Thrones players, and the current Thrones players moved over. Some of them, of course, went elsewhere, but I think the majority of people really picked it up and enjoyed it and have continued to do so. So how has it moved from that core set experience to where it is now that the card pool has expanded?
A big thing is that obviously there's just a lot more options. There's also just initially, I think there's some concerns about there not being enough ways to come back in the game.
Yeah.
Not as much back and forth as there was in first edition, because of course first edition just had so many cards and so many things you could do and so many tools for any situation. And I know early on in the game's life there were concerns about the game sort of snowballing, but in the last 6 months or so, I feel like the game has really come into its own. We obviously had Valar that came out, and all the factions have sort of gotten cards that help. Talked badly. I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
No, all the factions have gotten the tools they need to really have a place in the metagame and compete with each other.
Yeah,
so it's been really good.
You were able to really flesh out those various factions.
Yeah, and that's the thing with it.
They feel like themselves.
Yeah, the core set in the first cycle is we have 8 factions as opposed to 6, and there's only so many cards you can put in right at the beginning.
Absolutely.
And it's hard for every faction to feel really fleshed out and dynamic.
That's one thing that's always been fascinating about second edition is you are literally designing for 8 factions, and you're getting a single pack every month. You try to start to flesh those things out.
It's a pretty slow drip of cards.
So it makes sense that now, I personally feel like, and from talking to the local community, it sounds like you're exactly right in that the game has finally kind of hit that perfect place where now everybody has the tools that they need to play various ways within their own house, and then to compete with other houses in the way that feels very thematic and flavorful, and that back and forth is there. So now it seems like it only gets better, right? Because you just flesh it out more and more and more as you go. What's your favorite thing about the game? Something I like to ask designers what is it that you really enjoy about playing Game of Thrones?
It's a tough question because there are obviously a lot of things I like about it. One of my favorite things about it is just the way the plot deck influences the flow of the game, and how much control it gives you over how the game plays out over the series of several turns. It's probably my favorite mechanic in the game, honestly. Yeah, plots. Just like having to weigh a decision that, I could get this plot effect now, but then 6 turns from now, what if I need it then? You know, things like that.
Absolutely. Well, plots, really the quintessential element of Game of Thrones. I think a lot of players would actually look at the plot deck and say, this is really where Thrones becomes something entirely unique as compared to all these other card games. So I think that's an incredibly fair, fair assessment. And then finally, before we dive into this box coming up, this House of Thorns box, what is your vision for the future of Thrones? If you were to project out, to the perfect Thrones experience, where all the cards that you've ever wanted are produced, what does that look like?
A lot of it is continuing on the same trends we talked about, where each faction has different ways to play, different things to do. Because right now I feel like, again, most of the factions have a deck that's really solid and really playable, and some factions have a few different decks. Like, Lannister has their traditional big guys, Tyrion, Tywin, bunch of gold deck, but they also have Clansmen now, which is sort of a thing, and a really kind of a different way to play. And so my vision would be every faction gets to that point where you have very different options, very different things you can do with your deck.
Yeah.
Some factions, like Greyjoy right now, feels like they're mostly about unopposed, and you'll see some stuff coming up soon that's definitely going to change that and give them a lot of different ways to play the game.
So every house having a bunch of diverse ways to play even within that house. Wicked. All right, Danny. Well, let's dive into House of Thorns here. This is the Tyrell Deluxe Expansion.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, so this is the fourth, I believe it would be the 4th box.
Yep, we've had Stark, Lannister, and Night's Watch, and now the other new faction to 2nd edition, Tyrell.
And now here comes Tyrell. So let's kick it off with the old Sir Garland Tyrell. And who is Sir Garland ultimately, do you know? Yeah,
so he's the oldest son of, not the oldest. He's the son of Mace Tyrell, older brother of the Knight of Flowers and Marjorie.
Nice.
He's famous for being a very fearsome warrior and knight,
but
also very chivalrous.
Let's take a look at him here.
Yeah.
He's a knight in the Lord, of course.
Yep.
And he has this action during a challenge in which a knight character you control is attacking alone. Discard a card from your hand to raise the claim value on your revealed plot card by 1 until the end of the challenge. That's a limit once per challenge, luckily. I gotta tell you, anytime a card in Thrones says raise the claim value of your plot, you better pay attention.
Yeah.
Because this is gonna get
it's pretty powerful
real.
Effect.
How has this played out in playtesting? You, I imagine, took Sir Garland for a spin or two in some games.
He started out in a different place for sure before we came to this, but one of the big themes for Tyrell in the box is going to be their knights. There are a lot of knights in Tyrell. They're big on chivalry. And the sort of jousting theme of attacking alone is a big part of that. And he's sort of the linchpin of that deck. He says, if you attack alone with your knights, you get a really big reward.
And that makes a lot of sense for Tyrell, too, because they can throw in a lot of those strength boosts on the fly and really make those single challengers fearsome.
Yeah, but he's definitely felt fair, though. The discard a card is a cost.
Yeah. In Thrones, cards, man.
Yeah.
Cards are everything. Moving on, speaking of, we have a new Queen of Thorns. This is
get you some cards for sure.
5 costs. She's got the all-important insight keyword. Say no more, Insight is all that I need to hear. A lady, and then reaction. After Queen of Thorns is knelt, discard an event from your hand to search your deck for an event, reveal it, and add it to your hand, shuffle your deck.
Yeah.
That is unbelievably great.
Yeah, she is excellent. And this is sort of the other side of Tyrell. They've got the very noble, chivalrous side, and they've got sort of sneaky, scheming side. They're trying to advance their own plans.
So this is essentially, you can swap an event in your hand for any event.
Yeah, any event in your deck. So you've got, a situational event that you don't really need. attack with the Queen of Thorns and switch it out for something that you need right at that moment. It gives
Yeah.
you so much flexibility,
That's
so many options.
And it's after she's knelt too, so that could also happen at any number of other times that aren't just the attack. So the number of possibilities for when you just need to go get an event and can make it happen. That's awesome.
Yeah,
wow.
Yeah, very, very cool card.
Way to get across the scheming nature of the Tyrells as well. That really seals it up. Moving on to a kind of more, I guess, lesser known character, Mira Redwine. 2-cost character, she's a House Redwine lady. And reaction, after a character is removed from a challenge, pay 1 gold to give that character +2 strength or -1 strength until the end of the phase. So very, very adaptable. Tell me about the idea behind this one.
Yeah, so this plays into a couple of Tyrell themes. One is in the core set they had High Garden, which is the location that kneels to remove someone from a challenge. And they've gotten 1 or 2 other effects in that vein since then.
Yeah.
And that's sort of the way that Tyrell can kind of control the game, because they don't get a lot of the destructive, like kill a character or kneel a character effects that a lot of other houses get. They're much more of a constructive, building themselves up faction for the most part.
Growing strong.
Yeah, exactly. And so in this box, we're going to explore a little bit that sort of, stand a character and remove them from a challenge. And this is a nice flexible card that can say, you could either remove an opponent's character and make him a little weaker, or you could, attack with one of your own characters, opponent defends, and you pull him back out and give him a nice strength boost for the rest of the turn.
Wicked.
So yeah, she's nice.
So just more adaptability. So the Tyrells continue to be very difficult to pin down when it comes to the challenges phase.
Yeah,
you never quite know how much strength they're actually going to be bringing to the table.
Yeah, a lot of tricks up their sleeve.
And then finally, we have I guess you wouldn't necessarily call it an anti-Tyrell card, but you seem to have been doing this in these deluxe boxes where you're blowing up a faction at the same time you're introducing cards that are specifically good against that faction.
Yeah, and I think that's important for just for the metagame. You don't want to have this huge influx of new powerful Tyrell cards and nothing really to stop them, because then there's a risk of them becoming sort of dominant in the metagame.
Yeah, so given a few answers.
And so answers are definitely important.
This one's called Strangler, also known as the old D20 there. 2-cost attachment. It's a poison condition, and it's terminal. While attached character is participating in a challenge, set its strength to 1. And the key text here being, other modifiers do not raise or lower its strength.
Exactly.
So it is just cemented in at 1 strength forever, right? Yeah,
so this is a pretty powerful attachment to put on your opponent's characters. It's solid against any faction, really. You put it on, a Robert Baratheon or someone like that, and suddenly this giant, intimidating challenge presence is down to just a weak little 1-strength character.
Now, here's the real question. What happens if you're playing against Targaryen, and you have a really important character with a really important ability, and you're trying to prevent yourself from being burned down?
That is another possible use for it.
Aha! Well, we found it.
Protects that character from burn.
There's the Strangler. So there's 4 cards from House of Thorns, the upcoming Baratheon Deluxe box. What's your kind of favorite thing about this entire box, right? What are you looking forward to the most?
I'm really excited to see Tyrell really branch out and have a lot of different things they can do. Right now they've got some strong rush type effects in the current metagame. Yeah. And I'm really excited to see what we saw in the Queen of Thorns and Mira Redwine, the more sneaky, manipulative side of Tyrell, get a chance to shine a bit.
Well, that sounds
that'll be cool.
Super exciting. I'm sure players would be really amped to hear that. This has been Danny Schaefer, lead designer, Game of Thrones, the card game. Thank you so much for joining us, Danny.
Thank you.
And this is House of Thorns, the upcoming Tyrell Deluxe box. So go grab that, and thank you guys so much for watching. Until then, scheme on and keep playing.